order. It is 6 p.m. First item, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve draft minutes from December 13th, 2022 finance meeting?
I move approval.
We have an approval. Discussion. Yes, Alder.
Just a small friendly amendment to action item 6A. Motion to amend approved just has a spelling error in it.
Very good. Misty, you have that? Very good. Any additional comments? Hearing none, place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Next item, public appearances, non-agenda items. I don't believe we have anyone registered or online. Thank you, Scott. Moving on to item 4, the Finance Director report. The arbitrage reporting for 2017A, 2017B debt issuance, and which also is item 4B. I will turn that over to Misty Dodge, our Director of Finance.
Thank you, Randy. So included in the packet are the 2 arbitrage reports that we filed or prepared in coordination with Ellers, our financial advisor. So it's the money that we borrowed as a city in 2017 and the money we borrowed in 2018. So what arbitrage is it's requirements that we have to follow whenever we borrow money that dictates how fast we have to spend the money and then what interest we can earn on it and then how that interest we can earn on it compares to how much interest we pay. So really it's a way for us to make sure, well, not for us, for the feds to make sure that we're not taking advantage of the tax advantage that we get from borrowing money and say borrowing a bunch of money, investing it for a thing, not actually spending it, and then making money on it. So that was a problem a while ago for somebody, I'm sure. So now there's a lot of these new rules that we have to follow. So every 5 years, we're required to go through this exercise to make sure that I spent the money fast enough and that I followed the arbitrage requirements. 17 and 18, we did those together. The big project, there was a bunch of projects within these 2 issuances, but the biggest one was the fire station, the 2 new fire stations. So that was a factor in both of them. So we did them both at the same time and are presenting them to you now. So end of the day, we met all the requirements. Everything is all good.
Very good. Thank you. Committee, questions, comments? All right.
I do have more report, if I may.
Yes, you may. Yes.
Property tax time, obviously, is the big news right now. So I'm sure you all have received your bills or have heard about the bills. Things are going very smoothly in the finance department for collection. We did have 2 LTEs that were able to help us collect at the counter again. So it was nice to be back at the counter, kind of the pre-COVID routine. Also having both of them there, especially right towards the end of the year when a lot of people want to pay, was exceptionally helpful for the rest of the team. So we could all focus on the balancing and all of that stuff. So that worked out really well. We did collect a lot more this year than what we have in the past. So it was about 40-some million. I don't have the number in front of me, of course, now, but it was a higher percentage than usual. Part of that is the one of the biggest mortgage check consolidation people called CoreLogic. They gave us a big box of 1,300 individual checks on January 4th, and it was postmarked December 31st. And so as a courtesy, obviously, we wanted to try to get those receipts out to everybody as fast as possible. So huge kudos to Brenda, Becky, and Carrie in my office who got through that entire box in less than a day, receipted, balanced, very few voids, like just very accurate and on top of it. So them and then the 2 LTs too. So it was a big push, but we did get all of that in. Settlement we're working through with the county now, so those receipts should be uploaded to Access Day around the 17th. So that should be good for people that want to make sure that they have it with that December 31st date. They'll be able to see it there. Other than that, just getting ready for the end of year stuff. So now getting out W-2s, getting out 1099s, getting ready for audit, making sure all of our books are clean and ready to go. So it's a pretty busy time for the team right now.
Very good. Anything additional? All right. Discussion. Yes, Alder Gerhardt, go ahead.
Thanks. So for the LTE election, or sorry, not election, the LTE tax collection assistance, is that something you're going to be able to do in future years, or was there some special circumstance for this year?
Yeah, so we've always had, not always, For the last several years, we've had LTE staff that have helped us. Last year, because of COVID, we had internal staff, so economic development and administration helped us with the collection instead, so we didn't use any LTE hours in January of 2022. So we could really load up a lot in December of 2022, and again, it just worked out really well. So come budget time, you may be hearing a request for me to increase those LTE hours a little bit to get more help in that concentrated time.
Great, thanks.
Additional discussion. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5A, review of bills. 5A, detailed review of checks for $10,000 and above for the period of December 1st through the 31st, 2022, totaling $916,838.45. Questions, discussion from the committee? Hearing none. Moving on to item 5B, detailed review of all checks issued. Checks 124270 through 124403 for the period of December 1st through the 31st, 2022, totaling $1,119,798.06. Questions from the committee? Yes, Alder Gerhart.
There were several charges that said something like parcel fee. I believe it's this report. There's a whole slew of them. I'm just curious what those charges are.
If you look at page 47 of the packet, there's one right at the top there. I think that's what you talk about, like parcel number 6.
Yes.
Fee/TLE. So those are land acquisition and easement acquisitions along Lacey Road in order to do that project.
It's not the parcel post that you're thinking of, maybe? All right, very good. Thank you so much. Moving on to item 5C, detailed review of ACH payments for $10,000 and above for the period of December 1st through the 31st, 2022, totaling $475,606.44. Questions from the committee? Hearing none, moving on to 5D, detailed review of all ACH payments for the period of December 1st through the 31st, 2022, totaling $478,644.31. Questions? Hearing none. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alder Wheeler.
So, Misty, the payment to Wex Bank, I thought I saw that in the arbitrage report also, or no?
I doubt it. So
Okay.
Wex Bank is the credit card we use for fuel purchases.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Of course.
Additional questions? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to action items. 6A, do I have a motion for approval of ordinance 2022-0-43, updating Fitchburg ordinances to allow appeal of impact fees by amending section 24 through 18 of the Fitchburg General Code of Ordinances?
I move approval.
We have an approval. Misty, are you addressing this item?
I am.
Okay.
So for both this one and the water impact fee resolution we have later on, Ed Maxwell from Ruckert Milky, he's the consultant that helped us with the water impact fee study that we did. He is planning to be at council tonight, and he did a very nice presentation at Board of Public Works last night as well. So he's not here for this meeting, but he will be at council if you have more specific questions. So this particular one, as we went through that update study to our water impact fees, we realized that the ordinances didn't specifically call out that the appeal process that we have applies to water impact fees. So just trying to clarify that very clearly, that water impact fees would go through the same appeal process if they had an appeal.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Misty. Discussion or questions from the committee? Hearing none, I'll place the motion or the ordinance before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on to the next action item, 6B. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-210-22, updating the 2022 and 2023 fee schedule to include initial application and annual fees for small wireless facilities, which was postponed from the December 13th, 2022 meeting?
And if I may, before we take an action, included in the packet was a redlined version of staff's recommended changes. So if you're open to it, I'd like you to make a motion to approve as amended by staff and included in the packet. Feel free to say so moved.
Yeah.
So moved.
All right. Very good. Would you like to address this as well, Misty?
Yes, please. So tonight at council, you'll be taking action on an ordinance change that would establish a process by which these 5G small wireless facilities could be reviewed. And then through that ordinance, it says that the fee to go through that process would be established by resolution. This is the resolution then that would establish that fee. So because of timing, that ordinance change isn't being proposed until tonight. Obviously, we don't want to create a fee for 2022 for something that didn't exist until 2023. So that's why it was amended by staff and before you as just 2023 establishing the fee. I'll say the fee is to reimburse staff time primarily for their work on the applications that are coming through. There is a safe harbor provision in the requirements, and the estimated staff cost to do this work is higher than those safe harbor provisions. So staff is recommending we just use those safe harbor provisions as our fee.
Okay. Very good. Additional questions, discussion? Hearing none, I will place the motion before us amended as described by Misty Dodge,
Exactly.
with the 2022 stricken from the original resolution. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to item 6C. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-226-22? Purchase 2023 Toro Ground Master 4910 mower.
I move approval.
All right, we have an approval. Misty, are you speaking to this item as well? I think you are on all items tonight then. I do not see anybody else online, so.
Yeah, Fact TV should be joining us soon, but in the meantime, I'll
Sure.
just keep going. So this is a purchase of a mower in the Parks Department. It was budgeted to be replaced at this year, which is why it's coming forward. There's two, I'll say, unique things about this one, though. One is that when we got the pricing from Sourcewell, there was a clause in there that depending on how long it takes for us to actually get the piece of equipment, the cost might be higher. So we are requesting permission to spend up to that cap amount that they listed. Obviously, we hope that things will go faster and we'll get it sooner and the price will be less, but we'd like to get permission to spend that maximum amount if that is what we end up having to do, again, because of the timing of getting that equipment. The other unique thing is that staff would like to keep the 2013 one that's being replaced so that there is a spare available, especially as we're talking about these long delays in getting the new equipment. It'd be really helpful to have a spare in case something happens.
Very good. Discussion from the committee? Alder Wheeler.
Is there anything else that would be anticipated to purchase with that replacement fund?
So there definitely are things purchased every year. I'd have to look at the document to recall which particular items are planned to be replaced. But there is also in this particular project, there's kind of that old way where we did item by item, and then there was the new way as the replacement fund. There's a fair amount of money still available in the old way that they're using to catch up on some of these replacements that weren't able to be done. So
Got it.
I'm sure there are. I don't know what they are, though,
Got it. Thanks.
of course.
Additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to the next action item, 6D. Do I have,
Do you want to make a motion for?
well, we've only have one here. I think we could just, one before we go. Motion to approve Resolution R-232-22, approving the 2023 water impact fee rate.
I move approval.
All right, we have an approval. Misty, care to speak to this item as well?
Yep. So again, the consultants will be at council to give a more in-depth information if you're interested. But ultimately, the city has a water impact fee. Currently, we went through a study to make sure that the rate that we're charging is appropriate based on our current expected plans to enhance our water system. There is a recommendation to decrease the fee per residential equivalent connection. Think of that like an average home. So that fee is proposed to go down. However, there's another nuance in here where based on the actual usage that we've seen of our homeowners, that average usage per year has also gone down. So that rec fee is lower partially because the usage is lower. So then when you go to commercial properties and it's based on their estimated usage, their fees are actually going up even though the rec fee is going down. So again, Ed will be able to explain this so much better than I can. He has a great example in his presentation, but we did go through the exercise as required or as recommended in order to make sure our fees are in line.
Very good. Are there any questions from the committee? Discussion. Yes, Alder Gerhart.
My one concern is about, the report is very well done and really fascinating, actually. The one concern I have is about the public hearing related to it. I didn't get like a news flash. I didn't see it on the Facebook page or anything. I just don't know, because there's a public hearing associated with this. Is that?
I believe there is tonight at council.
I just don't remember. I just don't know if anyone's heard about it. That's my one concern, is that we're going to change it. It seems like it's very reasonably and well done, but I'm just not sure that the public hearing was well noticed. So.
All right, very good. Thank you for those comments. If there's additional discussion, I should say. Hearing none, I'll place the motion before us to a vote then. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to item 6E. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-233-22, Meeting Rooms AV Updates?
I move approval.
All right, we have an approval. And Jeremy Crosby with Fact TV is here with us this evening. And Jeremy, you have the floor.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Fantastic. All right, so basically this project is to upgrade the council chambers and the meeting room space. The project was put out for bid. We only got one bid from Peak Systems Group, who has actually done work with us in the past. So, it's good that we got somebody that we have worked with in the past on projects. The quote did come in over budget. We did rework the project, which I'll discuss in just a moment, splitting it into two phases. But what the project is we're taking a look at outdated and broken equipment in both the meeting room and in the council chambers, especially in the council chambers. Our AV system is holding on by a lot of Band-Aids, and Gaffer, if you know what Gaffer is. Updated AV system infrastructure. Definitely the way we do things now in this hybrid world is really important for us to update and serve the hybrid needs. We're lucky that we have invested a lot in the council chambers in the past, but that is definitely a part of this project. Simplify and duplicate systems as well for the ease of city staff. So important to make both of these spaces and any future meeting rooms accessible for staff, because in each room, generally speaking now, they are different systems, and it's not always easy for staff, especially when we've had a lot of new staff for jumping into those rooms and having an ease of use for meeting space. In the Genie ceiling room, what you're going to see down in there is you're going to see new displays. We'll be replacing the projector and screen. New AV infrastructure includes connections for users that come into the space wirelessly, HDMI when you plug into the system. That ultimately goes back to Fact TV and goes into the hybrid meetings through different connections. NDI is a new connecting platform done over CAPS 6 that we'll be implementing as part of this. New audio system in the Genie ceiling room will provide less cables on the table in the meeting room and access to better audio coming from the ceiling. So that's really important to us, plus some extra handheld microphones, updates to the cameras, hybrid meeting capture and control system. Both of these spaces have a control system that can use many different platforms. When we're talking about hybrid, I'm talking about Zoom, I'm talking about go to webcast, all these different platforms. We didn't want to just choose one. We wanted to be in a space where anybody could come in and use any type of hybrid meeting application. So both council chambers and meeting room and other meeting rooms, we'll be doing other meeting rooms later on this year, will of course incorporate these things. On the council chamber side in the phase one, we do want to upgrade that infrastructure and pretty much similar in fashion. You'll see the AV infrastructure. You're going to see some audio upgrades, not in the microphones that you see in front of you, but in the back end, better updated audio system that will allow us to do some additional capturing of good audio. And again, wrap that into that hybrid meeting piece. We have also in-room controllers in both spaces. So again, when somebody comes in and wants to use the room, they don't need FACT TV necessarily to start a meeting and go. Phase two, which is a proposal in the next TID closure, is proposed at $50,000 to finish off this project. And this came in over budget initially, so we're asking for additional funds, and that would finish off the council chambers, updating the cameras, new displays, which include 4 85-inch TVs that would go in the middle of the council chambers. If you look up in the dead center right now, you would be looking there instead of turning your head over to the big screen that's behind you guys now. That's really important to us. And again, the NDI infrastructure, which has to do with Cat 5, Cat 6, that's something that we're trying to do to future-proof when we're doing this project. So a lot of research. We do a lot of meetings in these spaces, over 200 meetings plus a year. And since COVID started, we've been in the council chambers a lot more. So we're using and abusing this stuff. I would remind you too that we haven't been using the conference room as part of COVID and budget items. We decided to keep our public meetings in the meeting room and council chambers, where we can spend some extra funds there to keep those up to date with the best technology that we can use for the time, and keep future proofing it as well for bigger changes like hybrid, and be ready for that. And just want to note too that this project is kind of setting the tone for what we want to do for future meeting rooms. So when I said we did a lot of research and planning, we brought in vendors to help us plan. We checked with other municipalities on what they're doing with their hybrid technology. Everybody had the same problem of how are you going to do this hybrid space? And we think we've captured it really well in this project.
Very good. Thank you, Jeremy. I'll open up it up to the floor. Are there questions from the committee? Alder Gerhardt.
I just want to comment. I mean, I'm excited that this will be a little bit easier for you guys going forward. It's exciting obviously it's kind of a new world going forward. I also want to say that what you've put together for the Genie Ceiling Room works really well. So I don't know if that's informing any of this, but we use it for transportation and transit. And I know we're one of the few committees that uses that room, but it functions really effectively. And it kind of makes me understand the potential for hybrid and in-person, but for like virtual people and in-person people to be together and like have a conversation effectively. It happens in that room in a way it just doesn't happen here right now. And I just had never seen that before I had meetings in that room. So I'm excited about what you'll be able to do with some additional funds and what you'll be able to do in council chambers. So excited about this.
I'm going to echo those same comments, but I'm also very excited that, like other staff members, that all of the massive wires on the tables, microphones will disappear. Correct, Jeremy? I see the shaking of the head.
That is 100% correct. I think Chad Brecklin, first meetings we had said, "What can we do about that?" About that space. We will rework that table eventually as well. That was actually part of our planning process, but the table came in way over like 10 grand. And we were like, I don't think we can put in a 10 grand media table right now. So we are going to look at some upgrades in that spot too. But main concern here is that bringing that hybrid technology together. We've been fortunate to have everything for infrastructure in place to do what we've done so far, but this will let us go a little bit further. And as Alder Gerhardt had mentioned, it's definitely works well now, but this will give us some other options to make that as smooth as possible in all meeting spaces for public meetings.
Yeah, I mean, 10 grand is a lot of money for a table, but that is a terrific room for, just as Alder Gerhardt mentioned, for certain meetings. And whatever investment we put in will be well worth it.
I like the monitors that'll be right here for people with older eyes. More definition.
Actually, I should did go over that. That monitor will be right in front of you, Mr. Wheeler, literally in front of you. There'll be a monitor at each location, so you guys can actually see this closer. And our goal is to get that the interaction is you guys are looking at the audience is looking at you, and we're having a meeting together with those people that are also online. So the extra thought into this is to try to bring, two spaces together, a virtual world and your in-person experience a little bit easier. So I think it will help in those details. And yes, for the older eyes, it will help big time.
Excellent.
Very good. Additional comments, discussion? Hearing none, I'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. All right, moving on to item 6F. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-234-22, adopting the schedule to update the ARPA/TID closure investment plan?
I move approval.
All right, we have an approval, motion for approval. Misty, I'll turn this one over to you.
As you all know, since you were involved in the process, we adopted our first ARPA TID closure investment plan last year around this time and wanted to do an annual update to that while we're kind of narrowing down the scope of these projects and getting more information in. So this schedule that's in front of you now is very similar to the CIP schedule that we follow. So if this is approved, the mayor's proposed updated investment plan will be released next week, Friday. There'll be a special finance committee meeting. It'll go to all of the committees and commissions and boards that have a meeting between now and when it was adopted, or when it's released and when it's adopted. And then council will be able to submit amendments to it, and then we'll discuss and vote on those amendments at a council meeting in March. Timing is a little important because we want to have this piece done before we move into the CIP process, because this is kind of a pre-CIP feeder project to go into CIP, which then goes into budget.
Okay, very good. Questions from discussion from the committee? Hearing none, I'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on to action item 6G. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution R-240-22, authorizing purchase of 1.5-inch and 2-inch water meters?
I move approval.
All right. We have approval. Misty, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, so our 1.5-inch and our 2-inch meters are for our larger buildings, so they're not the residential ones. There's about 88 of them that we want to replace in 2023 in order to better improve our meter reading, and then also they're just up for replacement. So we are requesting sole source in order for them to be compliant with the rest of our system, but would replace them as the meter testing has to occur.
Very good discussion from the committee. Questions? Hearing none, I'll place the motion before us to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on to the next and last action item, which is 6H. Motion to approve Resolution R-03-23, approving the termination of the estimate with MG&E to underground power lines and the termination of the development agreement with Green Tech Land Company, Tech Lands LLC, and FTC Holdings, and this is a direct referral.
I move approval.
All right, we have an approval. Misty, turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So first, this was a direct referral because Bill Balke had his last Board of Public Works meeting last night. We wanted to make sure the board could ask him any questions that they had before he retires this Friday. So congratulations to him. As a little side note, we are planning to close TID 4 sometime over the next couple of months. We still need to get the affordable housing resolution approved and then the closure resolution approved, which I'll be submitting for your council consideration over the next couple of months. Included in the packet was a memo very similar to when we did this last year with TID 6. Talks about the benefits of closing TID early, and then also the status of all of the remaining items within TID 4. So some of the items have natural things that will be occurring over in 2023. We have some external debt that final amount was called in 2022, so all that debt has been paid off. We have one remaining developer incentive that once I have settlement with the county for these tax bills, I'll have enough money to pay off that development incentive in whole early. And that was what we budgeted for 2023, so no further action is needed on that. Then there's another development agreement that's still out there. It's not the traditional PAYGO style, so there's not a normal like termination, natural termination. So part of this resolution is to sign an agreement that officially terminates that development agreement. City attorney has worked with the developers. They all have actually signed the agreement already. So now we just need council's approval to sign that termination, and then that one is off the books. And then there were two capital projects that council approved back in 2021. One is for railroad crossing improvements with the railroad. That was approved and is still moving forward, and that dollar amount is expected to be reasonable. So no action is needed there. The other one, however, that we do need action on is council approved undergrounding the power lines at that same intersection with MG&E for about $700,000. Based on timing and delays with this project, staff is recommending that we actually don't do that project at this time. So this resolution would give council authority to staff to terminate that agreement with MG&E, and we would no longer, at this point, bury those underground lines at the intersection. Big thing to note, though, is that we have TID 14, that Hartung property there, which will hopefully include a reconstruction of Lacey Road to the west. When that project goes through, we will reconsider at that point if we should underground the lines. So while we are terminating that project at this point, it's not necessarily a dead project, and we'll just bring it back for council consideration when that other construction project hopefully occurs.
Before I open up, I have a question. The portion that's under the railroad that will impact the intersection are the power, telephone, cable, the facility there, that infrastructure, is that going to be underground buried, or is that still remaining overhead?
I am not certain, and neither is Chad, so we will get back to you.
Okay. That seemed to be a point of contention at one point in time because of the railroad. That's why. That's the only reason I raised the question. Questions, additional questions, discussion? Yes, Alder Gerhardt.
I was actually wondering if Jimmy wouldn't mind summarizing what you talked about at Board of Public Works. I'm just curious.
Well, actually, the question I asked at Board of Public Works was, what is advantageous for us with this agreement? I don't know if you go over that again.
Yeah, I can. So the development agreement, so there's kind of two pieces with this resolution. So the development agreement, we can't close TID 4 until that is terminated. And so this is really a housekeeping item to say, you know, you met your responsibilities, we met our responsibility, that agreement is now terminated. So it's really a clarity piece so that it doesn't come back to haunt us or have questions in the future. As far as the undergrounding, the big benefit of delaying it is, one, we don't have to worry about TID 4 being hung up with the closure. Also, the costs are much higher at this point because of everything that's happening right now. And then with the timing, it could have had to have been done during the winter, which would have increased costs as well. So the costs are higher, the timing just doesn't work out for staff and the other projects that are happening now. So that's why it's advantageous for us to delay it at this point. But again, we're hopeful that this will come back up when the next part of the construction happens, because I think there's a lot of interest by staff to get those lines undergrounded. I think it does add value to that area, or looks better. It's just now is not the best time for us.
Right. And Randy, to your point, I think if I can recall, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, and Misty was saying, you know, they will be underground when the Hartung property. But are you referring to the part about who was going to pay to actually put those?
No, I wasn't. My concern was that this is all one continuous project. I mean, there's not a lot of aerial facilities. It's only about 200, I bet it's probably 200 feet, if that. I don't know what those spans are, but I know there was a concern of the aerial over the railroad at one time, so I wasn't sure. Are we going to bury that portion that conflicts with the railroad because of the intersection rebuild?
Yeah, we would have to go back because we talked about that before. I just don't recall. And I think it was more or less, like I said, that who was going to pay for it, whether, you know, the railroad would pay more for that. But it was always kind of like the intent to try to get those buried, so.
Yeah, I doubt very much you'll get the railroad to pay for it. Yeah.
Or MG&E.
Well, or any of them, no, it would have to come from city or TID and I certainly wouldn't want to hold up the TID closure, but it is a bit odd, you see that 200 feet still there when we've done so much work as an investment in that particular area, so I'm sure it won't be forgotten, yeah. Additional questions or discussion? Okay. I'll place the motion before us then to a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries. That concludes the action items. We'll move on to item 7, announcements. Our next scheduled meeting is January 24th, 2023. Item 8, do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, we have a motion for adjournment. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Ayes have it, motion carries. We are adjourned at 6:36 p.m. Thank you.